Hey guys, Matt here with 607 Stock. What I've got in front of me is I've got a 80% forging and I've got a threaded stock for said forging. What I want to go over today is some of the tools that you're going to need and the process that you're going to use in order to assemble your new stock and your forging together. So if you should have already watched the video titled how to disassemble your stock, and that will get you to this point right here. So some of the tools that you're going to need some SAE punches, you need some SAE Allen wrenches, and you're going to need the lower parts kit that you're going to be assembling this with. And the reason is you're going to need a couple pieces out of it right now. You're going to need your buffer retainer and spring. You're going to need your takedown spring and takedown spring detent, and you're going to need your takedown pin and your pivot pin. Okay, we're going to be using the pivot pin as a tool to actually install the cross pin that goes through the threaded rod and through the receiver holding it together. And I will explain that as we go. Don't want to forget, we're going to need a hammer. Phillips screwdriver is always good to have around in order to put your lock rod and tube back together. You're going to need a set of nippers. And I suggest keeping a strap wrench handy for this. So, first things first, we're going to go ahead and assemble our lock rod. Now, when you go to tighten this lock rod onto your forging or your receiver, what you don't want to do is you don't want to stick anything in these holes and use it as an aid to tighten. Reason being, you could deform the edges and it's not going to want to slide properly inside of the lock rod tube. So we're going to be lining two things up here. We're going to be aligning the pinhole on the side, and we're going to be aligning the buffer detent. We're almost there. I'm looking right here. There we go. Looks like it's lined up to me. So how do we check and make sure? Grab our punch, insert through our roll pin hole. Yep, we are lined up. So now, I have sent you a spring, detent takedown spring, and a new pin. And we're not going to want to take more than a 1/4 inch off of this spring, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So we're going to take our spring, we're going to insert our takedown pin, we're going to insert our takedown pin detent, pointing in first, making sure it's down on the pin. Try to turn your pin. If you can turn it, it's not all the way down, and we can't turn it because that detent's locking it in. I'm going to insert my spring, and we'll measure it. I'm going to cut it off right at the back of the forging. Now when you do this, it's going to leave a coil or two, as you can see, to become flush. So I saw that there was it needed one more coil taken off to be flush. So I'm going to bring my nippers up and I'm going to take one extra coil. If I take two, it's not a big deal, but I'm going to get one right there. Have that extra coil. And you want to wear safety glasses when you're doing this. Why? Oh, it didn't pop off that time. Safety glasses are always a good idea. I'll set my spring down. I'm going to take my pin out, remove my detent, remove my pin. I'm going to reinsert my detent, and I know this sounds backwards, guys, but trust me. Insert my detent, pointing down. I am going to insert my spring. All right. Now what else I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pivot pin. I'm going to insert it. I'm gonna bring it right up against that detent. Now, one tool I failed to mention is you're gonna need a set of tweezers of some sort. Is the easiest tool that I've found in order to make this job go very, very easy. And the purpose of these tweezers is going to be to grab this detent and move it forward after we get this pin in. So we're gonna look down in the hole and we're gonna see if we can barely see the end of that spring. And if you need to, when you get here, you can take a little bit off of that spring, or you could just hold that spring in like so with your punch. Okay. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna insert my 3/32 roll pin from the opposite side that my spring is on. I'm gonna remove my punch here for just a second. Set my forging down. I'm gonna start my pin. Now what I don't wanna do is I don't wanna drive it all the way across that spring hole, because that end of that spring could still be sticking out a little bit and I could grab it, deform it, and then it just wouldn't be good juju. Small light taps. Right. I'm gonna check my spring. See, look, my spring's popped back out. Not good. I'll push it back down in. Across, just like so. Now I'm gonna do one of these three-handed jobs where I hold my punch, okay, and I'm gonna lightly tap in order to retain the spring. Be careful not to hit my lower and dent it. And you can see I'm doing this just holding it in my hand. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the bench, and the reason I'm doing that is because I've got this punch in here holding that spring down. All I'm trying to do is cover that spring up and retain that spring. So let's see if we got it. Look straight in the back. So that pin is about halfway over that spring, and it has not caught that spring. Life is good. I'm gonna take it in just a little bit more. All right, now for the fun part. So I left my my front pin in here, and that's okay. You can do that, or you can take it out. But what we're going to do now is we're going to take our tweezers and we're going to grab this detent. See how I'm holding on to this detent, and I'm going to pull it back, and I'm going to use my front pin to hold the detent back. So I'm going to try to push the pin up. And it's a little awkward trying to do it for the camera, but let's see if I can do this three-handed job for you. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. I normally press it against my chest whenever I'm doing this. I'm gonna bring it back out of camera view for a second. There we go. So all I did was hold it against my chest just so I could basically use my chest as that third hand to kind of hold the lower still. And you can see I'm still holding the detent back with my tweezers, and I've pushed the pin through in order to hold it. So now what we have is we have the spring compressed right here. We then grab our takedown pin, and you can insert it however you want. If you want to have the detent ends facing back, if you want it there, no big deal. Either way, as long as we get it in. So we're basically going to push the pin out with the other one. Now what'll happen is you have to, if you didn't insert it with those detent ends back, you're going to have to turn it to where those detents show. And you can hear it pop into place. Right there. It's in. Okay. To continue, I'm going to reassemble my lock rod assembly by placing the spring and the ball bearing in, hold it down with my thumb, place the lock rod tube on, bring it up to where I can get it into this space right here, this large area. I'm going to take my D-pin, put it down in there, and then I'm going to lock it. Just bring it back and lock it. And that's so that it'll keep that pin orientated in the correct way to make it into those locking recesses. Now I'm gonna tighten it up. Hand tighten is good here. And there is Loctite applied to this when I send it to you. It's the only spot on this model where you're gonna wanna put Loctite. Do not put Loctite on your receiver. Check for function. Functioning. All right. Next step is going to be to install the buffer retainer and spring, and then the receiver extension. So hold it down, move your receiver extension from your stock. Get it hand tight. This is where you want to take your strap wrench. And give it just a little tighten. Not too much. It's good enough. Not loose, won't come off. Good. Stock. Lever. Tighten, not too tight, just hand tight, finger tight. That's it. Check. Rotate your lever to open. Move the stock back, rotate to lock.